Lon Chaney Jr. was born into a legacy that no one should ever have to live up to. Imagine being born into Hollywood royalty, but instead of basking in the glittering lights, you find yourself chained to a name that is impossible to escape, a name that is synonymous with horror, with darkness, with terror. That name was Chaney. Creighton Tull Chaney, or as he would later be known to the world, Lon Chaney Jr., was not born into a life of fame or fortune. He was born into the shadow of a giant, a legendary actor who would change the world of cinema forever. His father, Lon Chaney Sr., known for his incredible transformations into some of the most terrifying characters ever seen on screen. Lon Chaney Sr. became known as the Man of 1,000 Faces. He was a master of horror, disappearing into his roles through his groundbreaking makeup and prestige. Raised in an unstable environment, Lon Jr. was no stranger to grief from an early age. He was often told to be strong, but how could anyone expect a child to carry such weight? He even married the daughter of his boss, and the couple had 2 children together. At first, he fought to be known as Creighton Chaney, not Lon Chaney Jr. He wanted to make it on his own merit, not on the back of his father's legendary name. While Lon Sr. had been a master of disguise, unrecognizable under layers of makeup, prosthetics, he brought a raw, tragic humanity to the role. Critics loved him. Hollywood took notice. The character was a reflection of the man himself, trapped in a life he hadn't chosen, battling inner demons he couldn't control. The role was perfect for him. It wasn't just about the physical transformation, it was about the internal struggle, the pain of being trapped in something bigger than yourself. But it was his role as Larry Talbot in The Wolfman that would define his legacy. Lon Chaney Jr. was battling something much darker, his own inner demons. By the 1950s and 60s, he was appearing in leboujet movies and TV westerns. He was just trying to survive, just trying to pay the bills. But the question remains, who was Lon Chaney Jr.? Was he a monster? A tragic hero? A man trapped in a legacy that he could never escape? His health deteriorated, and his struggles with alcoholism worsened. He became a sad reflection of the man he had once hoped to be. He struggled with alcoholism, depression, and a sense of inadequacy that never went away. The pain, the humanity, the vulnerability that he poured into his roles, especially in The Wolfman, was unforgettable. He wasn't just a monster on screen. He was a man struggling with something far more terrifying than anything he could play in a movie. What is undeniable is that his best roles weren't the ones where he tried to be scary or monstrous. His portrayal of the Wolfman, his emotional, heart-wrenching performance, was a legacy that transcended the monster genre. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more haunting stories from the world of Universal Monsters. It was a glimpse into the soul of a man who never had a chance to live life on his own terms, but still managed to make an indelible mark on cinema history. They were the moments when he let his vulnerability shine through, when he allowed us to see the man behind the mask. And that, in the end, is what made him unforgettable. He was struggling with his own identity, with a world that saw him as nothing more than the son of a legend. He was constantly compared to his father, a man who was adored by the world, while Lon Jr. felt like he was always falling short. He was the backup, the actor they called when the greats like Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi weren't available. He was never the first choice. And transformation, Lon Jr. was always unmistakably himself. He wore his emotions on his sleeve, the pain in his eyes, the fear, the self-loathing. It was always there. When he acted, he didn't disappear into the role. He let the role become part of him. He appeared in small films, had some minor roles, but the success he sought never truly materialized. The world wasn't ready to accept Creighton. They wanted Lon Jr., the son of a legend, and soon Hollywood forced him into that mold. They billed him as Lon Chaney Jr., and the monster he feared becoming started to take shape. Universal Studios began casting him in all their horror films. He played Frankenstein's monster, Dracula the Mummy, and of course, the Wolfman, again and again. But the pull of Hollywood, a world he had been born into, was too strong. And when his father died in 1930, Hollywood came calling. The costume for the mummy was so hot and restrictive that he was willing to do anything to get out of it. And the transformation into the Wolfman wasn't any easier. The yak hair for the werewolf costume was singed with a hot iron, and Lon Chaney Jr. became convinced that Jack Pierce, the makeup artist, was purposely burning him. But what about the son? What about the boy born with a name that would haunt him, suffocate him, and define every step he took? Despite his father's enormous success, he was a strict and private man who forbade his son from following in his footsteps. He saw the darkness of Hollywood, the hunger for fame, the destruction that it brought, and he didn't want that life for his son. But what do you do when you read the child of someone as iconic as Lon Chaney Sr.? How do you resist the call of fame when the entire world already knows who you are? From the moment Lon Jr. entered this world, he was marked by tragedy. His birth itself was filled with dark irony. Born in February 1906, Creighton came into the world lifeless, not breathing, no pulse. From that moment on, Lon Jr. was forever playing catch-up. He wasn't just competing with other actors. He was trying to outshine the ghost of his own father. He was no longer just an actor. He was a living comparison to the greatest monster actor who had ever lived. and it was a comparison he could never win. In a desperate act, his father raced him outside, dunking him repeatedly in the freezing waters of an Oklahoma lake in an effort to revive him. Over and over, his father plunged him into the cold, hoping against hope that somehow the child would survive. Finally, after the terrifying moments of silence, the baby gasped for air. The story goes that his father, fearing for his son's life, saved him in what can only be described as a miracle. But that was just the beginning of the dark story that would become Lon Chaney Jr.'s life. Creighton's childhood wasn't a fairy tale, it was a constant battle. His parents' relationship was one of chaos, and the toxicity of their marriage seeped into the young boy's life. His mother, Cleva Creighton, was a singer, and their marriage crumbled under the strain of public scandal. She attempted suicide publicly in front of a packed theater, forever marking the family with a dark reputation. After the tragic event, his parents divorced and Creighton was left in the care of different homes and boarding schools. In the aftermath, his father, a legendary figure in Hollywood, told him that his mother had passed away, adding to the emotional burden that Creighton would carry with him for the rest of his life. When Creighton finally lived with his father after the latter remarried, life seemed to stabilize, but the scars remained. For a while, Creighton obeyed. He attended college, worked regular jobs, and tried to build a life away from the flashing cameras. Creighton tried to start his career, but it wasn't easy. This marked the beginning of the fracture in his life. But Lon Chaney Jr. was different from his father in one key way. His breakthrough came when he played Lenny in Of Mice and Men. Larry Talbot, a man cursed to transform into a werewolf, doomed to a fate he never wanted. This was Lon Chaney Jr. in so many ways. But as much as the Wolfman catapulted Lon Jr. to fame, it also trapped him in a cycle. The roles were grueling, the makeup was uncomfortable, sometimes painful. But it wasn't just the physical pain that wore him down. The toll of living in his father's shadow took its toll on Lon Jr., and as the years passed, his career started to decline. But despite all of this, Lon Chaney Jr. gave us something that no one could take away: his soul. On July 12, 1973, Lon Chaney Jr. passed away at the age of 67, leaving behind a legacy that was both brilliant and tragic. Maybe he was all of those things. Maybe he was none of them. Lon Chaney Jr. may have never been able to break free from the shadow of his father, but he created something truly remarkable in his own right. Let me know your favorite Lon Chaney Jr. films in the comments below.